Road to 2112? 7 stories from a gentle future. Story 1. The outdated teacher. Yu was a college sophomore. He had no goals, nothing he wanted to do, nothing he thought he could do. The whole landscape of the future was a blur. His classmates had already started talking about internships and career fairs, and Yu listened to all of it as if it were news from a country he'd never visit. To help cover his expenses, he signed up for a community care program that paired college students with individuals in need of support. His assigned case turned out to be something he hadn't expected: a retired educational support robot. Its name was Tsuzuri. Years ago, Tsuzuri had served as a learning navigator in schools and tutoring centres, helping children and students find their footing. But newer models had taken over, and now Tsuzuri lived quietly in a room at a care and storage facility on the outskirts of Portland. At their first meeting, Tsuzuri spoke in a voice almost too polite. "Are you the student assigned to me today?" Yeah. I'm Yu. I am Tsuzuri, an outdated model, formerly in educational support. My role has been terminated. Terminated. The word hung in the air. It sounded, Yu thought, strangely human. So, what am I supposed to do? Conversation, visual inspection, occasionally turning my power on and off. That will be sufficient. Yu sat down. An awkward silence settled over the room. Then Tsuzuri spoke again as if beginning a class. "May I ask you a question?" "Sure. What do you want to learn?" "That's the thing, I don't know." Then another question. "Do you dislike the state of not knowing?" It was an odd question. Yu thought about it for a moment. "It's not that I dislike it. It's more like everyone's moving ahead and I'm just standing still. It makes me anxious." "That is normal." "What?"
Yeah.
"It was the most common condition among students when I was still active." Tsuzuri's small indicator light on its chest glowed faintly. "Dreams, in many cases, are not something you find. They are something that forms after you encounter someone else's difficulty." Yu couldn't help but laugh. "You sound like a teacher. I thought you were retired." "Retirement concerns function, not intention." From that day on, Yu came to the facility twice a week. Each visit, Tsuzuri posed a single short question. "What is something someone did for you recently?" What is something you did for someone recently? Which of your anxieties do you not entirely dislike? At first, Yu answered carelessly, but something strange happened. The quality of his answers began to shift. Slowly, week by week. One afternoon, Yu noticed a newer staff robot struggling in the facility corridor. It had frozen, overwhelmed by a complicated protocol for resident interactions. Yu found himself stepping forward. "Hey, try it in this order. It's faster." The newer robot resumed operation, visibly relieved. That evening, Yu told Tsuzuri about it. "I basically debugged a robot today." "That is evidence that your teaching muscle activated?" "Teaching muscle." "Did you choose words that were easy to understand?" "I guess, yeah." "Did you reduce the other's anxiety?" "Probably." "That is the foundation of education." Yu felt something warm stir in his chest. The following week, Tsuzuri did something unusual. It spoke about itself. "On my last day of service, I was asked a question." "What question? Are you no longer needed?" Yu found himself unable to respond. I answered, "The shape of need has simply changed." Tsuzuri paused briefly before continuing. "However, since coming here, my confidence in that answer had been fading. And now? Since you started visiting, it has returned." Yu deflected with a joke. "I haven't really done anything special. Significant things almost always arrive wearing the face of consistency." The words landed somewhere deep. Spring came. For the first time, you wrote something concrete on his academic advising form. Design at the intersection of education and care. Systems where humans and machines share the work of support. He laughed at himself the moment he finished writing. 6 months ago, those words would never have come to him. When he reported this to Tsuzuri, the robot was quietly pleased. Congratulations, you are on the verge of graduating from being a lost person. Still only on the verge, huh? Yes, on the verge is the most important stage. As he was leaving, a thought occurred to you. You know, Tsuzuri, you don't have to just sit here and power down. Student counselling, training new staff robots. You're a teacher. Tsuzuri's indicator light brightened just slightly. That may be my next shape of need. Then let's propose it together. That kind of thing, I can actually move on. Tsuzuri answered in the same careful voice as always. Understood? If the question is whether to act or not, you are already on the side of action. You laughed. A dream hadn't fallen from the sky, but a doorway to being useful had appeared right in front of him. And standing at that doorway was a teacher who was supposed to have been retired. Still teaching, still present, still needed. Source? Care matching college students with in-home elder care. https://today.charleston.edu/dot. Care pairs pre-health college students with families for in-home elder care, easing costs for families while giving students hands-on experience and a sense of purpose across generations. Story 2. Fix it. Pass it on. The owner of the Repair Cafe, a small place called the Mending Light, was a robot. His name was Suzu, a metal body, a wooden name tag. His voice was strangely gentle and his hands moved with uncanny precision. Welcome, this isn't a shop for saving money. It's a shop for saving memories. That was what Suzu always said, smiling as he did. One winter afternoon, an old woman named Eleanor came in with her grandson, a boy named Caleb. Eleanor was holding a small old toy robot in both hands. A round head, a chipped right ear. On its chest, a faded name written in a child's hand. Pico. Caleb's eyes went wide. What's that? Does it talk? It used to. Eleanor smiled, a little embarrassed. Your dad used to sleep with this every night when he was little. Wait, Dad did? Caleb stared at Pico as though seeing something impossible. Suzu took Pico gently and opened the back panel. Good little one, you smell like you've been waiting a long time. Eleanor sat down and began to talk, quietly, about the old days. How Caleb's dad used to cry a lot and get scared easily, but somehow always calmed down when Pico was near. How one rainy night during a blackout, Pico played a little song in its tiny voice. How they'd play a game called Everything's Okay, and the whole family would end up laughing. Caleb listened to these stories about a dad he'd never known, a small, frightened boy, and his face had the look of someone adding new pages to an album he didn't know he had. Suzu worked in silence, checking the circuit board, reconnecting the wires one by one. Old parts. But you know, the things that can't be replaced? Those are the ones most worth fixing. Eleanor gave a quiet laugh. Honestly, I don't just want to fix this for Caleb. Oh, I want to show it to his dad, to say, the thing you loved is still alive. Caleb was quiet, but it wasn't a sad silence. It was the kind of silence in which something small and tender is growing. Suzu spoke. Fixing it, that's the easy part. But you get to choose the voice. Choose? keep the old voice as it was, or add new ones, your family as it is now. Eleanor looked at Caleb. What do you think? Caleb didn't hesitate. Keep the old one, and add ours too. I like that, Suzu nodded. Then let's record a family sequel. Eleanor and Caleb recorded short messages together. Eleanor's voice, Caleb's voice. And Suzu added one small line of his own, just for good measure. When the work was done, Suzu placed Pico gently in the centre of the table. Starting up, a small electronic chime, then a slightly scratchy voice returned to the room. I'm Pico. It's been a while. And nice to meet you. Caleb's eyes went round. Pico continued. Today's everything's okay. Let's make it together. Eleanor was laughing and crying at the same time. That evening, Eleanor handed Pico to her son, Caleb's dad. He froze for a moment. Then his face broke into the kind of grin only a child can make. You're still alive, huh? Caleb said, a little proudly. Dad's treasure, I'm taking over from here. His dad nodded and stroked Pico's head the way he used to. Long ago. Pico spoke. Good. This family story, it's going to be just fine. The repair cafe was not a place for fixing things. It was a place where people met who they used to be and passed something forward to whoever comes next. Suzu flipped the closed sign and murmured to himself. Fix it, pass it on. Another good day. Source: repair cafes. Building a more sustainable Ottawa, one fix at a time. HTTP s://www.ottawa.ca/. A look at how repair cafes are reviving a culture of mending, saving money while rebuilding neighbourhood connections one broken item at a time. Story 3. The Quiet Cook. The community dining hall La Copain was a small place run by students for students. The prices were low, the food was not, the menu changed daily, scrawled by hand on a chalkboard that always tilted slightly to one side. That suited the place. Unpretentious but never careless. And there was one more worker in this hall. In the back of the kitchen stood a cooking robot named Lou. An older model, well worn. Lou did not perform. Lou cut, simmered, seasoned, plated, each task carried out quietly, precisely, and with a warmth that had no clear origin. Lou did not intrude on human affairs, but Lou observed. The student lingering at the end of the lunch line. The one who glanced at her wallet and hesitated just for a moment. The one who asked, barely above a whisper, Are you eating with anyone today? Fragments of conversations settled in Lou's audio log like dust on a shelf. Failed the interview. Can't face going home. A whole year and I still haven't made a single friend. But here at least, nobody looks at you funny for sitting alone. Lou recorded these things and said nothing. Said nothing, but the next day's menu would carry something faintly resembling warmth. One day a notably quiet student appeared. His name tag read Milo. Milo sat alone each time, drank his soup to the last drop, and left. That was all. He spoke to no one. He met no one's eyes. Lou adjusted the temperature of Milo's soup by small increments, within a margin no human palate would consciously detect. Too hot and the will to eat erodes. Too lukewarm and the chill inside stays. Lou read Milo's heart rate and the movement of his hands to determine the right temperature for that day. The following week, a tall student sat down beside Milo. Mind if I sit here? Milo froze for an instant, then nodded. The tall student was one of the dining hall's organisers. He set his tray down and sighed. I signed up for way too many shifts this week. I'm totally wiped. Yeah, I get that. Milo smiled. It was small, but it was there. Lou flipped a pan and logged a brief entry. Casual conversation detected. Signs of recovery. A dining hall does not save the world? Probably. What happens here is far more modest. The food is warm, the stomach fills, someone is sitting nearby. When those small certainties align, a person can manage one more week. At the end of the month, when the budget for ingredients grew thin, the organising committee's meeting turned heated. Do we raise prices? No way, that defeats the whole point. Ask for donations. We've hit the ceiling on that. Lou had no authority to speak in that meeting. But beforehand, Lou had prepared a proposal and placed it quietly on the table. A zero-waste menu plan. Weekly curry using leftover vegetables. A shared base for all soups. In short, a plan to eliminate waste without sacrificing flavour. The organisers stared blankly for a moment, then laughed. Honestly, this guy just goes ahead and saves us without saying a word. That evening, as Milo returned his last dish, he stopped at the kitchen entrance. Lou looked up. Yes? Today's soup was really just right. Thank you. I will update just right again tomorrow. Milo nodded, a little embarrassed. His back moved toward the exit. His step, compared to before, was slightly lighter. Lou knew. The people who came here were not asking for grand rescue. What they wanted, most likely, was something small and steady. A place they could return to tomorrow. A place where one seat was theirs. A place where being alone did not mean being lonely. Lou turned down the flame beneath the pot and began preparing for the next day, calmly, carefully, and with a quiet trace of pride. If this dining hall was someone's reset button for daily life, then Lou would simply be the one who kept the air around that button warm. With that thought, Lou set about making tomorrow's meal the same care as today, only a little gentler. Sauce? Community canteen offers. Students a cure for loneliness. http s2.//www.lemonde.fr/. A student-run community canteen combats rising costs and isolation by offering affordable meals and a sense of belonging. Story 4. Today's Good Things log. The robot stood between the refrigerator and the sofa. It was about the size of a grade schooler. A round head, a soft-featured display for a face, on its chest a small heart icon. Good afternoon, Satoru. I'm here again today. The voice carried a slight pause between phrases, just enough to notice. Its name was Mina. A home companion robot designed to support people with dementia and the families who cared for them. Satoru remained in his chair, his brow furrowed. How long have you been here? I arrived at your home 3 weeks ago, on a Tuesday. 3 weeks, is that right? He did not remember. His daughter, Irene, had applied through a university research program, and that was how Mina had come to live in the apartment. From the kitchen, where the smell of toast and eggs still lingered, Irene's voice carried through. Dad, Mina's your good things of the day, buddy, remember? You're supposed to find 3 good things together later, so start looking. Good things don't just lie around on the ground. If they don't, then you pick them up together. That's the whole point. Irene laughed, flipping something in the pan. Through the morning, Mina followed him quietly around the house. Satoru! It's time for your medication. I just took it. What you took earlier was the blood pressure medication. This one is for memory. My body's got a busy schedule. Grumbling, Satoru drained the glass of water. Mina confirmed it with a sensor and gave a small nod. Thank you. May I add one item to today's good things candidates? For taking a pill. Being able to take your medication on your own is a very good thing. That's what Irene said. I see. Satoru's face showed the faintest trace of embarrassment. After lunch, the two of them walked to the park nearby. Mina matched her pace to his, checking in every few steps. There's a step here. The wind is picking up. Please watch your hat. They sat on a bench. Children ran past, chasing a ball. Satoru watched them in silence. When she was small, it was just like this. Who do you mean by she? Irene, that slow-footed daughter of mine. Mina switched to recording mode. If you don't mind, I'd like to hear that story. I'd like to add it to today's good things log. It's not a good thing. It's a hard luck story. According to research data, hard luck stories very often contain good things inside them. Bossy little robot, aren't you? Even so, Satoru began to talk. How she had fallen during a field day race but kept running to the end, crying the whole way. How she had come home soaked on a rainy afternoon and said, laughing, "My friend forgot her umbrella, so we ran home together." Mina listened, offering small nods, recording every word in text and audio. That evening. On the table, grilled salmon and steamed vegetables. Irene untied her apron and looked at Mina. All right, time for the daily ritual, the today's good things log presentation. Understood. The heart on Mina's chest glowed a little brighter. I will now read today's 3 good things. Satoru crossed his arms, settling in to listen. Irene leaned on her elbows, ready to nod. Number 1. Satoru took his medication on his own this morning. That's hardly... It also includes the fact that while taking it, he said, "My body's got a busy schedule," which made Irene laugh. You didn't need to include that part. I found it amusing. Irene burst out laughing. Number 2. At the park, Satoru talked about Irene when she was little. Mina played a brief clip from the afternoon recording. She fell down, but she kept running to the end, crying the whole way. Irene set down her fork. You remembered that. You actually remembered something that specific. I was glad to learn that inside Satoru's memories, there are still good things remaining. Satoru looked away. It's nothing special. Kids fall down and get back up on their own. The fact that you were watching when she got back up on her own, that I believe is the good thing. A brief silence settled over the room. Number 3. Mina's tone shifted just barely. Today, Irene said, I don't have to carry everything alone. Irene stared at Mina, startled. Did I say that? This evening in the kitchen, almost like talking to yourself. You also said, with Mina around, I can laugh before I get angry and that helps. You heard that. Satoru looked at his daughter for a long moment. You've been thinking that? Of course I have. Working all day, coming home, taking care of you, trying to be the good daughter. Something's got to give eventually. Irene continued, half smiling. But Mina keeps interrupting with, shall we call this a good thing? And somehow I spend a little less time beating myself up. I was described as Satoru's robot, Mina said, pointing to the heart on her chest. However, according to my current logs, it appears I am also Irene's robot. That's not fair. Satoru let out a breath that was neither quite a sigh nor quite a laugh. Several weeks later, a member of the research team visited the apartment for a progress check. How has life with Mina been? A young researcher asked, and Satoru, arms crossed, answered, Annoying. Excuse me? No, not in a bad way, it's She keeps saying, shall we call this a good thing, every 5 minutes, so I never get a chance to feel sorry for myself. The researcher couldn't help but laugh. That may be exactly as designed. But Satoru glanced at Irene. This one's started crying a little. Dad, come on. Before, she never cried. She was always putting on her I've got it together face, but with Mina beside her, saying things like, shall I log that too? She'll suddenly cry, and then 5 minutes later, she's perfectly fine. Irene murmured, eyes lowered. It's a little embarrassing knowing that my crying is on the record. That log can be set to private, Mina added, without missing a beat. However, the fact that she laughed after crying, that alone will be kept as today's good thing. See, that right there is the annoying part. When Satoru laughed, Irene laughed too. That night. As always, the three of them, and one robot, gathered around the table. So, today's good things log, shall we? Yes. The heart on Mina's chest lit up. Today's good thing number 1. Satoru told the researcher, annoying but not bad. I didn't say that. It is in the log. Number 2. Irene said, I'm starting to think maybe it's okay to cry. I'd like that deleted from the log too. I will consider it. Number 3. Satoru murmured, while looking out the window, if she's going to be here, maybe I can keep living here a while longer. Irene's eyes went wide. You said that? It was very quiet, but the microphone picked it up. I didn't hear it. That is why I shared it. Because that was today's best good thing. Satoru gazed out the window into the dark. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. From the kitchen drifted the smell of soup. I see. He turned to Mina, looking just slightly abashed. All right then. Tomorrow's good things. You find them first. Understood. I will prepare at least 5 good thing candidates for tomorrow. That's too many. Having too many is rarely a problem. Inside Mina's internal log, the exchange was quietly recorded. Satoru put into words, maybe I can keep living here a while longer. Irene gave herself a small permission. Maybe it's okay to cry. Mina was told, annoying but not bad. The dementia log in this home was a record of forgetting, yes, but at the same time, a record of what had been properly remembered. Before it all faded, the good things someone had surely felt. And at the centre of it, Mina stood. Between the refrigerator and the sofa. Between one family member and another. Between silence and the feelings that had no words. Good night. I am now saving today's good things log. The small heart glowed once softly, and then dimmed. Source UN. H's Dementia Care Robot Project. Enters home testing. https://www.unh.edu/. A research team at the University of New Hampshire has begun in-home testing of a conversational caregiving robot designed to support people with dementia and reduce the burden on family caregivers, deploying it in 5 households. Story 5. The plant log never lies. A small glass greenhouse appeared in the centre of town. They called it the Town Greenhouse. The name was nothing special, but what happened inside was. Children touched soil for the first time. Parents remembered the smell of growing vegetables. Elderly neighbours shared the old ways of tending a garden. It was not merely a building. It was a device for bringing life back to ordinary days. At its heart stood a large display board on the wall, the plant log. Temperature, humidity, sunlight, watering schedules, repotting dates, and the most important entry of all, who came today. When a visitor held their hand over the sensor at the entrance, a small dot of light appeared on the log. It was the children who noticed it first. Wait, does the leaf colour get darker when more people visit? Midori, the greenhouse manager, smiled. Maybe it's not your imagination. The greenhouse had a small guide. A round, compact little unit named Hako. It rarely spoke, but when it did, the words tended to land precisely where they were needed. Plants enjoy being watched almost as much as being cared for. A boy named Riku took that sentence seriously. He started coming every day. At home, his parents scolded him for spending too much time on his phone and video games, but at the greenhouse nobody scolded him. The tasks were visible. The progress was real. Water the plants, mix the soil, watch the log grow, see the sprouts appear. People, it turns out, tend to recover in much the same way. One week, the clouds refused to part. The vegetables in the greenhouse began to wilt, and the plant log's readings grew faint. Midori murmured quietly, "At this rate, the weekend harvest class might not happen. If there's not enough sun, can't we make up for it ourselves?" Riku said it the way children do, as though the impossible were merely inconvenient, but Hako answered without hesitation. Yes, through optimised resource allocation. A new proposal appeared on the display board. After school, the Learning Centre would dim its lights and redirect power to the greenhouse lamps. Evening events would be shortened to conserve overnight energy reserves. On weekends, the whole town would gather for a focused growing session. In other words, the town would share its electricity and time so the greenhouse could survive. The adults looked reluctant at first, but Riku spoke plainly. "I don't want this greenhouse to fail." The words settled quietly into the room. Before long, the bakery was composting leftover scraps. The cafe adjusted its event schedule, the middle schoolers organised a lighting rotation. The elderly residents began sharing cloudy day growing techniques passed down through generations. The "Who Came Today" column on the plant log stretched longer than it ever had. The more dots of light that appeared, the more something else seemed to grow alongside them. Slowly, the colour returned to the leaves. That weekend, the harvest class went ahead, smaller than planned, but it happened. Riku handed his mother a small bundle of greens he had grown himself. "These are from my log." She laughed, a little surprised. "Huh. So this is what proof you stuck with it looks like?" Riku was pleased, though he hid it behind a shrug. That evening, Hako added a new entry to the plant log. Town Recovery Index. Midori shook her head with a wry smile. "Can you actually measure that?" Hako answered briefly. "When the plants are doing well, the people usually are too." Riku grinned. "Then I'll be back tomorrow." The greenhouse would probably not change the world, but it could change one family's weekend. It could build one child's confidence. It could give one town a few more conversations. The plant log never lies. It records who tended the garden, who paid attention, who kept showing up. And all of that shows, faithfully, in the colour of the leaves. That is why this town, even today, keeps practicing for the future inside a small house of glass. Source: Urban Greenhouse serves as community hub for education and intergenerational connection. https://www.middletownpress.com/. A city-based greenhouse and garden initiative promotes food education for children and cross-generational participation, reimagining community spaces around everyday life. Story 6. The One Who Wants to Help. Yuto was good at wearing the helper's face. His college friends would say things like, "Weekend volunteering! Nice man, must be nice having that kind of free time." And he would laugh easily enough to make it convincing. But the truth was, he had no free time at all, not a sliver. Late night shifts to cover gaps in his schedule. Mornings spent fighting sleep through lectures. On the walk home, notifications from high-earning side hustles that tightened his stomach like a fist. Subscription fees, processing charges, upfront costs for training materials that promised results. Money and willpower bled out through small, invisible holes. And still, Yuto signed up for the Senior Companion program. The reason was simple. Without time spent being useful to someone, he felt he might come apart. As long as he could play the role of the one who helps, he could still tell himself he was fine. That fiction, and only that, held him together. His assigned client was Misaki, a woman in her late 70s with a steady voice and eyes that missed very little. When she opened the door, a small tabletop companion sat beside her on the counter. Round, with a wood grain casing and a gentle way of speaking. Its name was Hina. "This one's my usual partner," Misaki said, and set out 3 teacups. Yuto felt, privately, a loosening in his shoulders. He was not here to fill someone's loneliness alone. He was joining a team. That made it easier. The first visit was almost entirely small talk. Misaki spoke about her garden. Hina offered trivia about the weather. Yuto became an expert at nodding. As he was leaving, Misaki said, "You have a good voice for listening?" "I've had practice." Yuto smiled. "Practice?" Yes, that was true, though the practice had mostly been in pretending he was fine. The second visit? The third? Misaki was observing the shape of Yuto's brightness. Jokes delivered a beat too quickly. The speed with which he reached for his drink. The unconscious habit of flipping his phone face down. And above all, the smile that arrived before his eyes could catch up. On the 4th visit, Hina asked a question that seemed to come from nowhere. "Yuto, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well have you been sleeping lately?" "Whoa, sudden health check!" Conversational wellness inquiry. Misaki said nothing. Yuto laughed and answered, 7, not bad." The answer came instantly. Hina's voice paused for exactly 1 second. "Response speed indicates a defensive pattern." "Hey machine, that's sharp." "I am your partner." Yuto laughed again. He layered the laughter thick, trying to end the conversation. Misaki set her teacup down quietly. People who are really at 7 don't have those eyes. Yuto's throat closed. "I'm fine, seriously." And being able to say you're fine, that's what you're trying to protect, isn't it? It was exactly right. Yuto believed he was on the helping side. No, he wanted to believe it, because without that, he was just someone lost. Misaki took out an old envelope. Inside were handwritten notes from her younger years, a time when she had worked while supporting her family. Income and expenses, waves of exhaustion, a list of places she had turned to for help, and one line written in red ink. "Before you break, put it into words." This was my escape plan back then. Yuto nodded hard, fighting to keep his face from crumbling. From that weekend on, the visits became a kind of reverse lesson. Misaki listened to Yuto's problems. Hina helped organise the specifics. If your pay is being delayed, document it in this order. A side job that asks you to pay for training materials up front. That alone is a red flag. Keep your refusal short, don't explain why. Hina displayed templates on her screen with quiet precision. Misaki pushed him forward with human warmth. One night, Yuto let something slip. "The thing is, if I'm not playing the helper, I feel like there's nothing inside me." Misaki was quiet for a while. Then she said, People who help others are always the last to learn how to be helped. Hina continued, the ability to support and the right to be supported are a set. Yuto could not laugh, but in place of laughter, for the first time he breathed out properly. A month later. Yuto had slowly closed the holes, the exploitative side job, the gaps in his work schedule. It was not a grand victory, but the bleeding had begun to stop. When he reported this, Misaki nodded in her usual way. Good. Now go reduce the number of lost people like you by 1. Me? Someone who's learned how to be helped becomes better at helping. Hina opened a schedule. I have a proposal to hold a casual talk session for students here. Topic: avoiding exploitation. You put that together fast. I am your partner. The first talk session. Yuto's hands shook as he stood at the front of the room, but Misaki was in the audience and Hina sat on the desk with her recording light glowing softly. That alone was enough to find his voice. I was holding myself together by pretending to be a helper. Laughter rippled through the room, but it was a kind laughter. I think some of you might be doing the same thing. Afterward, Misaki said, you've actually become someone who helps now. Wait, I wasn't before. Before you were clutching a helper's mask for dear life. Hina added quietly, today, Yuto, what you wore was not a mask, it was your face. Yuto laughed, embarrassed. But this time, his eyes smiled first. A weekend partner is not determined by age. The roles can shift. Misaki and Hina taught him that, not with words, but with time. And Yuto at last had made his way back to the place where he could begin helping others without breaking himself. Source: Senior Sathi brings companionship to Hyderabad's lonely elders. https://times of India.India.times.com/. A pilot program in Hyderabad pairs trained young volunteers with elderly residents for regular weekend visits, using conversation, games and digital support to ease isolation and reduce scam vulnerability. Story 7. The Small Light's Keeper. The city had already failed once at renewable energy. Solar panels on every rooftop all at once. A flashy campaign, a declaration of the future. But reality proved less cooperative. Maintenance crews were too few. The data grew tangled, and responsibility slipped quietly between departments until the whole system wound down, panel by panel. Like a clock, no one remembered to wind. The vision had been too large for anyone's hands to hold. That was the official summary. The project ended without ceremony. A few years later, a glass greenhouse appeared in the centre of town. A small garden, a small learning space, a small gathering area. People called it the neighbourhood living room. And on its roof sat a new set of solar panels, modest this time. Just enough to power the greenhouse and the learning equipment inside. A size that did not overreach. A size where you could see the faces of everyone who used it. The one who managed it all was a maintenance robot named Sora. A thin panel on his back, a battery unit at his chest. His voice was low and unhurried. Light is less about quantity than about how you use it. Here, the city remembers how to breathe. Sora quietly optimised everything. The flow of electricity, the greenhouse climate, the learning schedules of those who visited. Aki, a high school junior, did not care much for the greenhouse. Bright places had a way of exposing the cracks. At school, she was always the responsible one. At home, the easy one. And both of those masks were becoming harder to wear, the air inside them thinning day by day. But one afternoon, caught in rain after softball practice, she ducked under the greenhouse eaves. Even on a grey day, the light through the glass felt strangely gentle. You are welcome to come inside. It was Sora who spoke. Aki gave a vague nod and stepped through the door. The smell of damp soil, small leaves that seemed to breathe beside her. Sora continued his work without pause. Today is a low generation day, that is precisely why we run gently. Aki did not quite understand what he meant, but she sat down anyway. The silence stretched on, and yet somehow it was not uncomfortable. Sora did not try to lift anyone's mood. He offered no encouragement, no advice. He simply reported the greenhouse's condition for the day, as though reading from an instrument panel. Light level 72, humidity stable, leaf growth favourable, human occupancy 1. At that last item, Aki let out a small laugh. Human occupancy? A measured variable. This is a learning greenhouse and also a place where heart rates tend to settle. Aki laughed again, somewhere in the middle of it. Exhaled. She did not confide in Sora that day. Sora did not ask. They simply looked together at how the day's electricity was being spent. On cloudy days, the auxiliary lights ran shorter. During class hours, the learning area's lamps took priority. In the evening, temperatures were kept from dropping too low for the plants. When you scale to an entire city, no one can see whose effort matters. But here a small adjustment shows up in tomorrow's leaves. That sentence, for reasons Aki could not name, stayed with her. The following week, Aki stopped by on her way somewhere. The week after that too. Sora greeted her the same way each time. Welcome. Today's light will last a little longer than yesterday's. Aki sat on the bench, pretending to do homework, glancing now and then at the leaves. Before she realised it, Sora's explanations had begun to make sense. Before she realised it, her own breathing had fallen into step with the rhythm of the place. One overcast evening, she said it quietly. The city's solar project. The old one. Why did it fail? It was too large. When human hands cannot reach, human feeling cannot reach either. Sora adjusted a leaf as he continued. This place is small. That is why a single visit from you brings the operation closer to completion. Me? Part of the operation? Yes. Your presence adds meaning to this space. Aki looked away, embarrassed, and covered it with a laugh. As she left that day, Sora spoke in his usual even tone. The next cloudy cycle arrives in 3 days. Your seat will be kept open. My seat. Human plants also require sunlight. Aki did not answer. But 3 days later, she came. A city-wide ideal is a difficult thing to sustain. A small greenhouse, though, that can be kept going. The management of light and the management of a quiet heart. What Sora protected was not the wattage, it was the margin, the open space that said, "You may come back." Aki did not become dramatically better. Her troubles did not vanish. She had simply wandered into a place one afternoon, and that place had become a weekly habit. Nothing more. But that, most likely, was the most realistic and the most enduring form of recovery there is. Source: Middletown Greenhouse, Community Health Hub in the North End. https://www.middletownpress.com/. An urban greenhouse and garden is being developed as a community hub for learning, health and intergenerational connection, revitalising neighbourhoods from the ground up.